I am proud that I have 3 new poems for you tonight, and I will start with one of the new poems. Now, even though I had to reprint in 14-point type so I could read as I go along, I have to make sure the microphone's not in the way. Vocabulary lesson. In the 2nd grade, I learned anyone could grow up to be president. I believed, despite the fact the country had never had a woman president. In the 3rd grade, we practiced for our imaginary future with an election for class president. Someone nominated me. Someone nominated Margaret. Mrs. Morton told the 2 of us we had to speak to the whole class with a good reason to make students want to vote for us. A campaign speech, she called it. Make sure you have how are you going to accomplish what you propose part, or what you promise part. At that moment, my success became clear. I had a really important issue. Sometimes recess started late. And this made me and the class mad. I wanted to play on the monkey bars, hopscotch, and run from the boys who snuck kisses when they caught me. Can you believe that sometimes the teacher wouldn't let us take our recess? I burned with the unfairness of it. Besides, what 3rd grader would object to more recess? But Margaret, I'll never forget her name, and her family knew of darker truths. Our class had 32 students. My opponent and her mother made 31 buttons. I flinched with jealousy because I coveted one of those ball canning jar lids whose white enamel underside were scratched with Margaret for President. They even glued safety pins to the other side so people could flaunt them on their shirt to remind the whole school that Margaret had more friends than I. Even my best friend wanted to wear one. I didn't blame her. I wanted one too. How did her family come up with the idea? Where did one buy glue like that? My family's only glue was gloppy flour and water paste mixed in a custard cup. More than the pens, I craved Margaret's family knowledge. How did they know campaign buttons won elections? I knew nothing of those necessary buttons. Underhanded the buttons were. I only learned much later they were called bribes. My election success did not look good at that point. My one last chance of winning would be my speech. Never afraid to talk in front of the class, I volunteered to be first. If I am class president, I will make sure we go out to recess on time so we can play games. I didn't mention the boys chasing the girls to kiss them part. Then I rushed to share the solution, my solution. The way we get our full recess is for us to make I stuttered, felt outside of the word that hid at the back of my tongue. Shaduli. I saw puzzled faces. I'd only seen the word in print, never heard its sound. You know, schedule, like a clock. It tells you when it's time to stop reading or arithmetic and go out to play. Still no flicker of recognition. Desperate then, and still unaware that Mrs. Morton might not like my recessed desire, I asked her, "Don't you know the word?" What I meant was, please, 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 save me before I melt into the floor like the wicked witch of the West. She only shook her head. The unfinished speech just hung there waiting. I could not run out of the classroom and cry, so I finished. Anyway, if you knew what I meant, you would want it too. I heard boys snicker, girls giggle, but I avoided looking at their faces. On the way back to my seat, I bit my lips so hard, I tasted blood. I can't remember anything that in Margaret's speech, only that she won 31 votes to my 1. A double embarrassment because everyone knew I had voted for myself. Thank you, Mrs. Morgan, Margaret, and Margaret's mother. You taught me about politics and elections. I learned from you that votes can and will be bought, that ball canning jar lids are as good a bribe as anything, that for election success, I have neither the proper glue or the right words. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I am not President of the United States. These poems are true. They happened to somebody. If you ask me, I will deny. And since I have one poem about school, I'll give you another. The botany lesson. You need to know a name. I have to look to share it. Amaryllis belladonna purpurea major. It's a native to South Africa, and it's very strange, and there's a long stalk with no leaves, and then at the top there is this gorgeous pink blossom, and they just appear. Very wonderful, strange flower. In August, and they're called naked ladies, okay. In August, the naked ladies take stage. Their chorus line of smooth legs shimmy in time to summer heat waves. Naked ladies disdain leaves, prefer instead to push through soil with stunning solo turns, their fluffy pink skirts twirling all the while. Food can come later, they must think. Photosynthesis is not related to art. Naked ladies catch the eyes of unawakened boys. When Stephen, my stepson, asked me about them, he giggled when I said their name. Months later, in his Texas science class, the teacher asked students to name flowers while she wrote them on the board. Stephen recalled the dancers, recalled their dance. Triumphant with his memory, he cried out, "Naked ladies!" Stephen's teacher, never having seen the flower, was horrified at the dirty mouth of one so young. She knew exactly how to maintain decorum and erase his impure thoughts. She assigned detention because she firmly believed Education is not related to art. Almost all the poetry that I write tell a story, but the form is different, and I never really know the form the poem is going to take until I've written it down and revised it a couple of times and look at it and say, oh, it's that kind of poem. The first one I read, I don't know what to tell you what its form is, because it's either flash fiction or a prose poem. And I was worried about it. What are people going to say? Finally, I decided it doesn't matter. It's a damn good story. So, poetry is often about aggravation. This is my current one. I have a lot of them, but this is the latest. Do you all know what clamshell packaging is? Those plastic things that they hide stuff that you want in? Okay. Ode to clamshell packaging. Your card of introduction is little help, even as you turn your best profile towards me. I can barely make your acquaintance. You refuse to open up to me, teasing me through the pain with your perfectly shaped goods, your jet-molded curves. Hold me. Stroke me, turn me on, you call. I want nothing more than to tear you to pieces. So you turn on me, slice my finger. I watch as blood seeps along the thin cut that I know will nag me for a week. You pretend I don't already own you. I wonder if I can tame you even when I reach you. I move on, grab a knife, stab you, but end up creating pitifully small breath holes, leaving your air spaces intact. Truly furious now, I pound you with my fist. You bend only a little, then pop up again. Time to reinforce my troops and marshal my artillery. I bring out the big scissors, but my battle strategy fails to thrust open your carefully crimped seams. I almost give up in defeat and curse the corporate gods who torture me until suddenly one side slices open. Thinking your secret unlocked, I rush forward, certain your resistance ended at last, but it is only a delay maneuver while you transform into a chastity belt, holding tight to your virtue. Are you determined to be a virgin to my human hands? Are you avoiding your humble fate of being thrown into a bag, collected anonymously and dumped? You valueless creature, not even worthy of recycling. I will not mourn your demise. Valentine's Day is coming up, and I have a few poems on some different kinds of love. My first love, after the boys who used to chase me in third grade, was the first Elvis impersonator. Way ahead of his time. And I love the quote from Sting, who said, Elvis was steroids and ice cream. And John asked me where I was from. I spent my parents were Southern, and I spent every summer until I was 16 in the South. And this is one of those summers. One night, before I'd even heard of you, I sat on a fender in the middle of the Georgia forests, listening to Chuck growl your hound dog all the way down my spine. I converted right then, Elvis. When Chuck drove me down a deserted pine road to park, your voice surrounded us as we steamed up the car windows. As his fingers unhooked the bra beneath my Angora sweater, I imagined his hands were yours. Chuck must have imagined a beach full of bikinied co-eds loving him tender. Between hickeys, I played with the pretender's pompadour, twirled his sideburns the way I wanted to tease yours, and changed my address to Heartbreak Hotel. One of my favorite couples had been married for 50 years, and this is a poem I wrote to honor them and their marriage. Love in 3 Mediterranean languages. Seco. I would bring you fresh figs, my love. We would dine on the hillside like the Greeks, peel back the thin brown velvet skin to expose the white and purple flesh, fill our nostrils with its delicate smell, sink our tongues into the moist tendrils. Fico. I give you instead Kalamata figs, flat imported ripeness, caught in raffia strands, still smelling of the hayfields where olive hands plaited garlands into straw coils. Higo. Our figs will be dried when we eat them, pale beige, striated golden brown. Their rich sweetness as mellow as the two of us, and as the two of us, the better for the marinade of time. This poem is a love poem too, but kind of different. Water Woman flees to the movies. This water woman does not balance a clay jar on her head or bend over the town's well to fetch water. Native musicians will not play their rhythms as she sways by. Our modern water woman draws moisture from life, collects her unshed tears until her cistern threatened to crack. She retreats to the movies, opens her spigot eyes to release the pressure, sobs with relief as water gushes down thirsty spillways and purges her body of toxins. She thought, as she grew older, she would cry less. Drought would come, permitting her pain to callous over into desert dry scabs. But the downpour hurt continued. Instead of drips, it spread like a damp stain across the ceiling. She turned into a sponge, absorbed unshed tears of refugees, soaked up the droplets of orphans and abused children, beaten wives, children murdered by gangs, or for no reason at all. She filled herself with puddles of the unloved, and not stopping till she collected all their rivers into her high water lake. Modern day water women do not balance a clay jar on their head, bend over the town's well to fetch water. Native musicians will not play their rhythms as we sway by. Near flood stage now, our water woman arms herself with tissues, switches to double feature comedies. Despite the on-screen laughter, her eyes drench her sweater. She smells its wet, salty wool all the way home. Grateful for this moment's cleansing of her polluted heart. My last two poems I call the Coma Palms. I had a coma a year ago, and I was in the hospital for 5 weeks. And John stole my line. I've always used this, as some of you have heard me say it. When troubles are given to writers, it's called material. The first one has nothing directly to do with comas in its subject matter, but it's part of the Coma Palms because it was published while I was in the hospital. And actually, because the night before I went into the coma, I had spent some time sending off a bunch of my poems, which I'm awfully lazy about and don't do very much. And while I was out, I kept getting, my daughter brought I was awake finally, and she brought me my computer, my laptop, and I had these urgent messages saying, we would like to publish your poem, but if you don't contact us immediately, we'll assume you don't want it. And I had my laptop on this very high hospital table and dropped it over several times and cracked the actual keyboard. But I finally got in touch with him and said, hey, I have a really good excuse for not replying to you. I was in a coma. So it got published. And someone requested that I read this poem tonight. The Girl in the Picture, for Kim Fuck. The girl in the picture, the naked one with flames on her back, arms flung wide, exposed, bare pubis. The girl in the picture ran down the road, and the world gasped when it saw her. The girl in the picture, skin burned through to her bones, did not die from jellied gasoline like her brothers who hid with her during the attack. When she left the hospital barely mended, she wanted to hide her scars away from prying eyes, wanted to heal scorched children like herself. But the girl in the picture was summoned to Ho Chi Minh City. Her president ordered her wounds undressed for visitors, paid camera crews to film her gnarled skin. Years later, she stole away to Cuba. Studying medicine in the island's heat, she dreamed of wearing short-sleeved dresses, waving smooth arms as she danced like the other girls. The girl in the picture is a woman now. She married and gave birth to a child. She flew over the country that ordered her set fire, escaped from the plane when it refueled in Canada. These days, when it's cold, she pulls her coat sleeves all the way over her fingers to hide her past. The girl in the picture teaches her son to count in Vietnamese, Spanish, and English. As he plays with her scarred fingers, she wonders why, many years ago, she had to wear flames. Wonders when she will show the picture to her son, and how she will explain to him the reasons his mother had to run naked before the world. And my final poem, and my latest, is some of that material that when life happens to you. Some will never leave this place. Seeping under the closed door, tangled sounds of unfamiliar consonants drive me to seek translation help. Japanese, Spanish, Samoan, or Tagalog languages that whirlwind outside in the hall. Ignorant of the words, I am more than fluent with their meaning. The family pain and guilt that loved ones feel in this place that never loses its urine smell. Mama must stay in this place. We can't take care of Papa at home. We have our jobs, our lives. Of course we'll visit. Every Sunday, we promise. Gradually, visits turn into every other Sunday. Then the big holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, perhaps a birthday. Daughters who used to be taken care of now must take care. Sons who never even changed their children's diaper must now hear doctors detail their father's bowel movements, hear the liter output of his catheter bag. In this place of regression, visitor and staff alike pretend to hear the disembodied voice begging, I have to go pee-pee. Nurse, daughter, granddaughter, all have lowered the matriarch's bed rails, taken their turns to walk her to the toilet with no outcome, resettled her rattling bones, wrapped in skin as thin as the sheet that flutters back on top of her body. Still, I have to go pee-pee, pierces the hallways through the night. Daytime cell phone arguments rage. Yes, I love her, but I can't do it anymore. My home, not possible. She's your mother too. I hear the cell phone clatter apart when it is thrown against the wheelchair-dented walls. We lose our family, lovers and friends, until there is only our decaying bodies, our different voices, Spanish, Japanese, Samoan, Tagalog, and English, unified in silence beneath the earth.